The room had been prepared for happiness the way some rooms are prepared for funerals, too carefully with the wrong flowers. My mother had arranged everything herself, which meant every chair faced the right direction, and every conversation stayed inside invisible boundaries. There were plates of food no one was hungry for, music playing just loud enough to prevent intimacy, and relatives performing warmth like a ritual they had memorized years ago. I stood near the window holding a glass I hadn't sipped from. From where I was, I could see my reflection layered over the garden lights outside, my face hovering, not quite belonging to either space. I had learned to do that as a child, to be present without being fully visible. It kept things calmer. My parents were in the center of the room holding court. They were good at this. People leaned in when they spoke. They had the confidence of people who had never needed permission to define a story. I wasn't part of the conversation, but I was part of the topic. I knew the signs. My mother's voice dropped into that careful register she used when she wanted sympathy without contradiction. My father's laugh came late, like punctuation added after the sentence had already landed. Someone said my name. There was a small pause, just enough time for the room to recalibrate. My mother smiled in my direction, the way people do when they are about to say something they believe is justified. "We've always done our best," she said, not to me but to the room, "but some children—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. My father picked it up. He always did. Some children make life harder than it needs to be. Then, as if concluding a practical discussion, he added, "Honestly, sometimes we wish she was never born." He said it plainly. No anger, no heat. Just a statement filed under truth, the way they had always filed things about me. For a moment, nothing happened. That's the strange thing about cruelty. When it's familiar, it doesn't always arrive with drama. It settles. I felt it land somewhere behind my ribs. Not sharp, not new, more like pressure, like an old bruise pressed with a thumb. People looked at me then, quickly and away. A few faces stiffened, unsure whether they were supposed to react. No one interrupted. No one objected. Silence, I had learned, was often mistaken for neutrality. I didn't rush to speak. I noticed the weight of my feet on the floor, the glass in my hand, the fact that my breathing hadn't changed. That was new. There was a time when a sentence like that would have dismantled me. I would have tried to explain myself, or apologize for existing, or disappear in a way that left no trace, but still asked for forgiveness. But standing there, something else happened. Not courage, not anger. Clarity. I turned toward them. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step forward. I didn't smile. "If that is what you wish," I said evenly, "then consider me as if I never existed." The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Someone set a plate down too hard. "Live your lives," I continued, "as though there was never a daughter named Lisa." That was all. I didn't wait for their response because there wasn't anything to respond to. I had not made an argument. I had accepted their premise and removed myself from it. Silence followed. Not the awkward kind that invites rescue, but the heavy kind that refuses to be filled. My parents didn't speak. My mother's smile froze, uncertain where to go next. My father looked at me as though he had misplaced something important and didn't yet know the cost. For the first time in my life, they had no follow-up. A few seconds passed, then a voice cut through the quiet, calm and unmistakable. "That won't be necessary," said my aunt, the host of the evening. She wasn't emotional, she wasn't angry, she sounded administrative, which was somehow more powerful. "This is my home, and we don't speak to guests like that here." She didn't look at me when she said it. She looked directly at my parents. "If you're unhappy," she added, "we can take a break from the gathering, but this conversation ends now." It was a small intervention, no raised voices, no moral speech, just a boundary enforced by the person who controlled the room. My parents nodded stiffly. They didn't apologize, they didn't explain, they adjusted. That was their skill, survival through recalibration. The party resumed, but something fundamental had changed. Conversations kept a careful distance from me now, not out of hostility, but uncertainty. People didn't know which version of the family narrative still applied. I stayed for another 20 minutes, long enough to prove I wasn't fleeing, long enough to let the new shape of things settle. When I left, no one stopped me. Outside, the night air felt neutral, not comforting, not cruel, just present. I walked to my car without urgency, my mind oddly quiet. In the weeks that followed, the consequences unfolded without announcement. Invitations arrived addressed to my parents alone. Group messages continued without my name included. Decisions were made without consulting me, exactly as I had suggested. It hurt more than I expected. Disengagement, I learned, isn't painless. It simply hurts in a way that doesn't degrade you. My parents reached out once, a short message, the practical, as if checking the status of a utility service. I replied politely, briefly, without reopening anything. I did not explain myself. I did not justify my boundary. I treated it as settled fact. Some relationships faded, a few quietly strengthened. My aunt began calling me directly, separate from the family network, not to discuss my parents, just to ask how I was doing. I noticed something else too, the absence of dread. Holidays arrived without the familiar tightening in my chest. Decisions felt lighter. I stopped rehearsing conversations that never changed. My parents never said they were wrong, but they also never said I was never born again. Power didn't shift dramatically. There was no confrontation, no apology scene, no moment of redemption. What changed was simpler and harder to undo. They lost automatic access, and I stopped trying to earn the right to exist. Some nights, the grief still surfaces, the kind that doesn't ask to be solved. I let it pass through me without assigning blame. Self-respect, I've learned, isn't loud. It doesn't announce victories. It just quietly refuses to participate in its own erasure. And that, finally, was